QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Download transactions from the bank. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our bank feed test file. We currently have the home page open. You can open the home page by going to the company dropdown, selecting home page. We have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view dropdown, selecting the open windows list. Last time we took a look at the setup process for the bank feeds by going to the banking dropdown, going to bank feeds and the setup process to connect directly to the bank. However, there could be some situations where you want to download the transactions from the bank and then upload them into QuickBooks. For example, if the first amount of transactions you want are a lot of transactions, meaning like a whole year's worth of transactions, maybe limited to the amount you can get from the bank itself, and therefore you might want to download the transactions where you could get more and then upload them, in which case you'll be in basically the same point as if you connected, meaning they'll be then in bank feed limbo, which is what I call it. They're not added to the books yet, and then you can add them to the books. It's also a good way to practice as well. So we're going to do our practice file here. So you could do the link for the practice file, or you might use this method to practice uploading the data and then just working with that data once you have it uploaded. So our next step then is going to be connecting to the bank. So we'll do an example of basically just Wells Fargo, but any large type of bank should have this option. And QuickBooks is a large enough program that often banks will use it. Even other programs are using basically this QuickBooks format of the data that can be downloaded. So therefore, many banks will have it. All the big banks will have this download option, and even many smaller banks are starting to pick it up as well. For example, in Wells Fargo, if you go into your online banking, so you would need online banking typically to do this, you would go into your accounts, and they have this download account activity here. So within the download account activity, you can then have a screen down below which has the format in which they can be downloaded. So in this case, they have Quicken, which is another QuickBooks program for like individual. Don't get that mixed up with QuickBooks, which is the one we're looking at here. And then there's an IFF, which is possible that you can upload, but it'll be more difficult. So what we really want is the QuickBooks file, and that'll download it in like a QuickBooks type of format. It's going to download all the transactions as we saw in the bank statement. Really, it's going to have increases and decreases to the banking account, of course. And then you could set the range, and you have good control when you do this format to basically set the range that you want to be downloaded. So if you want an entire year or something like that, you may be able to pick up an entire year. Now, some banks will have limitations in terms of how far back you could go. So that'll be dependent on the bank in terms of how far back they will allow you to simply download transactions in this format that you can then upload to the QuickBooks system. However, typically it'll be more here, meaning if you download them directly from the bank, usually you can go further back in time than you could otherwise do if you were just getting them from the connection itself. Now, when you download the bank feeds, you're going to get the banking information. It won't be in a bank statement format. It'll be basically in a format that you can upload it. But just recap, notice what you're picking up is something similar to a bank statement. Here's a mock bank statement here where we have the deposits and checks. So you can have a limited amount of information, the deposit amount and maybe who paid you in a description, and then the checks, which would be the electronic payments or the check numbers would be included. So that's kind of like what's included in a really simple type of file, really, and if you looked at the actual data for it, that we're now going to basically upload into QuickBooks. And once we upload it into QuickBooks, it'll put it into that limbo field where we can then approve them and provide the information necessary to populate the QuickBooks system. The data file will look something like this. So here's it's a .qbo file as opposed to the software, which is obviously the software file. And then if you look at your data file, if I open up the data file, it's in the format, looks like this, of a QBW file. So I'm going to close this back out. The fact that it says QBO here might make you think that it's going to be an online file. That's usually the abbreviation for an online file. But it's just basically the QuickBooks file from the bank. So this doesn't mean like you can only upload it to online. It's basically the QuickBooks file extension that the banking industry has used now in order to give that information. So this file then is holding the basic information that you would have on your bank statement, this kind of basic information, in a very clean type of format. It's just going to have the deposits. It's just the activity, right? It's just going to show the activity of the deposits, and the checks are encoded here. And then we're going to run this next time and put them into our QuickBooks file, put them into the QuickBooks file. Once we do so, there will be no activity for the financial statements. If we take a look at the financials, they will not change, balance sheet and income statement, because these transactions will be held in limbo until we add, that's what I call it, limbo, QuickBooks bank feed limbo, until we basically add the other transactions necessary, which will include accounts. We need to assign accounts to the deposits, which might be like revenue accounts typically, and we need to assign counts to all the decreases to the checking accounts as well. And it would be nice if we can also add customers for the deposits if that's included in the feeds, if we have that information, which it may be if they're electronic transfers, as well as the vendors for the decreases in the checking account. So we'll continue on with that next time.